When it comes to the month of September, September can honestly be one of the harder months to go out there and catch bass. It can be very difficult to stay consistent out there on the water. And anytime that I am dealing with tough conditions, I really like to simplify my approach. And that's why in this video, I actually only have 3 lures that I'm going to be showing you. These are the 3 that I throw the most during the month of September. I try to keep things simple because this month is a month of a lot of change. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the month of September. We're gonna talk about those 3 lures. So stay tuned, it's gonna be a good one. Right now at Omnia, there's a massive sale going on for Labor Day. All of your tackle is 20% off. Not only that, but Omnia is also running some great Labor Day sales for their Pro memberships. A Pro membership allows you to have topographical maps for over 44,000 lakes across the United States, as well as be able to put different layers on those maps. And now one of their new features is waypoints. Anytime you're on the body of water and catch a bass, pull out your phone, hit the waypoint app, and it will bring in all the current conditions as to when and where you caught that specific fish. This is something that can help you for years to come to always be in the right areas. I'm gonna leave some links down below in the description. You can check out all the Labor Day sales. Now, before we get into the top 3 lures for the month of September, I think it's really important for us all to understand why bass fishing can be just so tough during this month. And one of the biggest reasons is that this is just a month of change. We're kind of going from really hot conditions that we face throughout the summer to really leading into fall. You start to see a lot cooler nights. And anytime you're going from one kind of season to another, it can always be really tough. And the biggest reason that it's tough during September is a lot of lakes are dealing with a fall turnover. Now, if you are a little bit newer to bass fishing, or maybe you don't understand the fall turnover, during the summer, a lot of these lakes are going to stratify, which just means that they are going to separate into 3 parts. You have the top layer, you have the thermocline, and you have the bottom layer. Now, the top layer is full of oxygen and it's typically a lot warmer. The thermocline typically has most of the oxygen, and then that bottom layer is a lot cooler and has a lot less oxygen. So during September, when you start to have these cool nights, that top layer is going to start to cool off. As it cools off, it is eventually going to get to the same temperature as that bottom layer, and that is when you see the flip occur. All the water kind of meshes together, and when this happens, it can lead to the bass really not wanting to bite. And so that is why I try to simplify my approach. That is why I really only fish 3 lures this time of the year, which we're going to get into right now. Now, the first lure is a topwater. I fish a topwater bait a ton during the month of September. I mean, I fish it all throughout the summer, but really in the month of September, I'm going to have a number of different topwaters with me at all times. And the biggest thing about it is that you really want to make sure that you are just picking a topwater that fits the situation that you may be fishing out there on the water, because all these lakes that we fish are all a little bit different. You know, what you are fishing down in Texas is not the same as the guys in California. It is not the same as the guys in New York. It's not the same as the guys in Ohio. So I really just like to have topwaters that fit the situation I am fishing. For example, maybe I come to a lake that has a lot of grass. It has coontail, it has hydrilla, it has milfoil, it has cheese mats. In that situation, I'm probably gonna have a frog tied up. I'm gonna cast that frog over that matted vegetation and have those fish come up there and bust that thing. That is one of the most fun ways to catch them. And fishing around grass is also a really good thing to do whenever you are dealing with kind of that fall turnover, because the grass is going to provide a lot of oxygen, and so therefore it seems like a lot of bass that are around grass tend to bite a little bit better. Now, maybe you have a lake that is clear and it is rocky. Now, one of my absolute favorite baits that I fish a lot during this time of the year in those type of lakes is a whopper plopper. Now, specifically, I like to have the Whopper Plopper 90. And the reason that I like this little bit smaller bait is because the 90 series, if you were to listen to every single Whopper Plopper come through the water, this is the one that is the most subtle. It has a lot less kick. The other ones have a lot more aggressive plopping action to them. And I'm not gonna say that you can't catch fish on a bigger whopper plopper during the month of September, but I feel like I get a lot of bites on the whopper plopper 90 during this time of year. Now, the key to fishing this bait during this time of the year is simply covering a ton of water and honestly not caring where you get bit. And what I mean by that is that, like I said, if you're dealing with the fall turnover, the biggest thing that it can really do is spread fish out. You will have fish that are on the main lake and on points and humps. You will have fish that are already in the back of creeks. You will have fish in the middle of creeks. You will have fish on all different types of cover. They are extremely spread out. Now, I like to just go down the bank and fish everything that is in front of me. I like to fish, you know, a shade line. I like to fish around a stump if it's on the bank, a dock. Maybe there's a riprap bank. I am just going to simply pick this thing up and just go fishing. But the important thing to remember is that you're really not trying to get on a pattern this time of the year. Because those fish are so spread out, and because honestly there's a lot of bait all over the lake, you're just gonna catch one here, and you're gonna catch one there, and you're gonna catch one everywhere. So just pick up that whopper plopper and go to town. Now, the other topwater that I tend to throw a lot during this time of the year, which is a little bit harder to get your hands on, is a Jackall Riser 007. This particular bait is a very unique topwater bait. It actually sinks, and the way that you work it, you cast this out, you kind of skip it across the top of the surface. Now, during this time of the year in September, you have a lot of bass that are chasing around little tiny shad, little tiny bluegills, little tiny minnows. And if you see bass that are chasing those little tiny bait fish, I'm telling you, one of the best baits you can pick up is this one right here, this little Jackall Riser. It mimics those little bait fish just scooting across the top of the surface. And although this bait is tiny and you have little tiny hooks on it, I have caught some absolute monster bass with this bait in the month of September. And the big thing with this bait is it just causes a reaction strike. This thing just goes skipping across their head and the bass can't resist to go up there and just eat it. Now, the second lure that you need to have with you in September is a Texas rig. The good old, simple Texas rig. And I'm telling you what, I throw a Texas rig all over the place during this time of the year. And it's very similar to a topwater bite. I am trying to just fit the Texas rig that I'm going to fish to the situation that I'm going to be fishing. Like I said earlier, we talked about matted vegetation. Not only can you throw that frog, but something that I love to do during this time of the year is punch through those mats. I'm gonna flip those mats with a big weight, like a 1.5 ounce weight with a little crawl style bait, punch through that mat and catch bass that are in matted or just heavy vegetation. Now, the other thing that I really like to do is find kind of more offshore grass. If I can find milfoil that is off the bank, or hydrilla or coontail, and I'm just going to work a Texas rig kind of towards the outside edge of these grass lines. This is a great way to catch some really big bass in the month of September. Now, maybe your lake doesn't have any grass at all and you like to fish offshore. One of the best things you can do is just pick up a big worm. One of my favorites lately has been a big X-Zone Blitzworm. This is an 11-inch worm. It has floating plastic and the thing just gets a lot of bites. And one of my absolute favorite techniques to do is do some finesse flipping. During the month of September, there's a lot of fish that are still up shallow, even more fish that are moving up shallow. And what I like to do a lot is pick up a little finesse Texas rig. This is a 1/4 ounce weight with a Zoom speed crawl. And I'm just going to flip and pitch this into all the cover that I can see. I really like it around wood cover. So if your lake has a lot of wood, this is a great bait, but you can flip it in the grass. You can flip it on just rocky banks. You can flip it all over the place and catch a lot of bass. The big thing about the month of September is that I just don't want to overwhelm you. I think you can just keep things simple and that will allow you to be more consistent out there on the water. Now, the third and final lure is one that is a little bit more controversial, but it can catch the biggest bass in the month of September, and that is an Alabama rig. There are a number of different Alabama rigs out there on the market. I tend to like a little bit more finessey Alabama rigs in the month of September, ones that have smaller swim baits on them and not those really big swim baits that you see a lot kind of in the winter to pre-spawn. But during the month of September, and especially at the end when you really start to see that water temperature start to drop again, the bass are going to start feeding heavily on bait fish. And one of the best ways to kind of catch big ones is with an Alabama rig. And there are a lot of intricacies that go into fishing an Alabama rig. And I did a full video all about A-rigs. I'm gonna leave it linked right up here. So if you guys wanna know more about the A-rig, you can watch this video next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.